Every little girl, deep down, dreams of living like a princess. In a room that smells like vanilla and fresh linen, under a soft blanket, surrounded by toys, books, floral wallpaper, and warm voices. Every girl wants to believe her home is a castle. That someone will wake her with a smile, hug her at night, ask how her day went. That nearby there will always be care, safety, love. I never had that. I was born in a home where the walls creaked like rotten teeth, where the floors were crooked, the windows always streaked, and the ceiling covered in stains. A crumbling gray apartment building, a rusty elevator that always got stuck. And that constant smell. Wet cardboard, stale alcohol, cheap food. It wasn't a home. It wasn't warm. It wasn't a future. My parents weren't really adults. They were just older. They drank, they screamed, they disappeared. They came back, with someone else's scent. Sometimes Mom would vanish for 2 days, then return with rage in her eyes. Dad would fall asleep at the table mid-bite and wake up blaming the world for ruining his life. They were like children who'd been handed fire by accident. And with that fire, they burned everything around them, especially me. Poverty isn't just about lacking money. It's about feeling like you don't belong anywhere. It's the shame of asking a classmate for a pen because yours snapped days ago. It's the envy when a friend's mom picks her up from school with a smile and a pastry. It's the fear that there won't be dinner. Again. And it's that quiet voice in your head whispering, "You didn't deserve better." I used to dream. So hard. So vividly that I built other homes in my head. Homes with stairs that didn't creak. With parents who read bedtime stories. With a fridge that always had yogurt. Those dreams were my vitamins. Without them, I would have broken. But reality was different. Rough. Harsh. Screaming in shades of blue. I learned early that you can't dream out loud, because you'll be laughed at, dismissed, or blamed for wanting more than you deserve. I grew up quiet, listening, hiding, adapting. I learned how to survive in chaos, where you never knew what the night would bring. A cold silence or shattered plates. And that's exactly why. I never invited anyone over. Never. I scratched out my address on gift tags, hid school forms, dodged every question about what street do you live on. Because mine led straight to hell. That's when my double life began. By day, I was the girl who had it all together. By night, just silence stretched tight over screaming. At school, I was normal, even fun. The girl who cracked jokes, neat notebooks, hair in place, a practiced smile. But it was all a mask, one I put on every morning, while my chest burned with questions. Did Mom come back from wherever she disappeared to? Was Dad still drunk? Had he hit my brother again? Home was a powder keg, and I was always tiptoeing across the fuse. I was 10 the first time I lied about where I lived. A teacher handed out emergency contact forms. I knew no one would come if I broke my leg. Dad would turn off his phone. Mom would forget. So I made up an address, just in case. So no one would ever see the mold or smell the cheap booze soaked into the walls. I grew up in an apartment that smelled like bitterness and broken dreams. My mom used to be beautiful. Once. Now she was just ruins. Always tired, always angry, always blaming someone else, especially me. My father, he was a shadow, sometimes soft, sometimes terrifying. He could go silent in a way that made me want to sink through the floor. And when he did raise his voice, he shattered the air. Loud enough that the neighbors would bang on the walls. My brother checked out early. He lived inside his headphones, glued to a screen. And honestly, I envied him. At least he had a way to escape. Every morning, I left home like I was going to war. But I wasn't afraid of school. School was my shelter. I lingered in the hallway, washed my hands for too long, faked forgetting things. Anything to delay going back. Because home was another kind of show. One where I didn't belong. Where I was always in the way. Where no one ever asked, "How are you?" And where saying, "I'm tired," sounded like a crime. not a cry for help. I remember once a classmate asked why I never invited anyone to my birthday. I told her we were renovating. But the truth? We had peeling paint, a fridge that smelled like something had died in it, and a hole in the wall that no one bothered to fix. I was ashamed. Ashamed to the point of nausea. I looked at the other girls with their fluffy pillows, their curtains with flowers, their fridges full of food. And then I came home to my mom face down in a pillow. And my dad, drunk, once called me a mistake. And I believed him. By the time I was a teenager, I barely spoke. I learned how to smile with my eyes. I mastered saying "I'm fine" so convincingly that even the school counselor never questioned. I became the good girl, the quiet one. The one who never caused trouble. The one who sat still and left quickly. Because at home, I wasn't allowed to be myself. No one asked what I wanted. They just told me, "Don't hover. Don't talk back. Don't get involved." One day, my mom blamed me for my dad disappearing for a week. She said, "If you hadn't looked at him with that judgmental face, maybe he wouldn't have gotten so angry." I was 15. I went to the bathroom and washed my hands for 20 minutes. Not because they were dirty, because I wanted to scrub myself away. I remember the one and only time I invited a girl over. She came in, saw the empty bottles scattered around, my mom in a bathrobe, and left after 20 minutes. A few days later, I overheard her telling someone at school that my house was total trash. Then, by the lockers, I heard a group of girls talking, saying I smelled weird, that there were bottles under the table, that her parents are probably alcoholics. They said it so casually, like they were discussing the weather. And I stood at the end of the hallway, hearing every word. And in that moment, something inside me just broke. I didn't cry. I just stared at the floor, clutching the strap of my backpack. Then I went to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and stood there hugging myself for a long time. I wasn't ashamed of my family. That pain was old. I was ashamed of my trust. Ashamed that I let someone in, believed, opened the curtain just a little. That day, I learned something. Even friends aren't always safe. Someone can hug you at lunch and laugh at you behind your back. And if you don't have a normal family, no one will pity you. They'll avoid you, whisper, judge, as if poverty were contagious. After that, I never invited anyone again. I learned to live in a way that made me invisible. I became the family scapegoat. My mom dumped all her rage into me like a trash can. My dad ignored me. My brother acted like I wasn't there. I grew up in a home where love had to be earned. And clearly, I didn't earn it. They shamed me for crying. My mom used to say, "Why are you whining? You live just fine." But I could feel something breaking inside me, like my soul was quietly begging, "Please, someone just ask me if I'm okay." But I stayed silent, because I knew no one would believe me. My family knew exactly how to look normal when it mattered. Things changed in college. I moved into a dorm and it felt like breathing after years of suffocating. There was noise, laughter, strangers' smells, but no yelling. For the first time, I fell asleep without fear. For the first time, I could leave a cup in the kitchen and not get humiliated for it. But even then, I never invited anyone to my real apartment. During breaks, I made up stories, saying I was visiting an aunt, a grandma, anyone, just to avoid going back there. Home was a place where I disappeared, where I became that invisible girl no one ever loved. Eventually, I started therapy. And you know what the scariest part was? It felt like I was betraying my family just by telling the truth. Like speaking out was treason, even though they'd been betraying me for years. I realized how much pain I was carrying. How many years I stayed silent, hiding, playing a role that wasn't mine. How many times I said yes when I wanted to scream no. Now I live in another city. I bought myself a small apartment on a mortgage. Old, but mine. It has a little balcony that faces the park. In the morning, I hear birds singing. In the evening, I breathe in the scent of trees and cool air. It's not a palace, not a fairy tale from a magazine. But to me, it's home. The very home I once dreamed about, lying on the floor of that noisy room while my parents screamed. My kitchen always smells like coffee. Sometimes I bake cinnamon rolls, just so the house smells like warmth. Sometimes I catch my reflection in the balcony glass. And I don't see a frightened little girl anymore. I see a woman who made it. And maybe it's late, but I'm still rewriting my story. These days, I'm seeing someone. He's calm, gentle. He doesn't understand why I sometimes flinch at loud noises, but he holds my hand, and slowly, I'm learning not to be afraid. I don't know how this will end, but one thing I know for sure, my story isn't about pain anymore. Now I'm the one writing it, and this time it's going to have a happy ending.